woman正好从这上面这上把这神经上的大大慢慢的容易破坏上面，那他们的慢慢下到，那他们的送机的公共到把这气的，他们就上面把人用。
First of all, it is once again necessary to give rise to the proper motivation before we set out to listen to these profound Dharma teachings which Rinpoche is about to deliver. And of course the motivation should be to strive to bring about lasting benefit and welfare for the sake of all beings out there, not a single one excluded, which invariably, in one lifetime or other, have been our kind parents, mothers, fathers, etc. and so forth. All of these beings have shown us great kindness in this time, so we owe them this debt of gratitude. And all of these beings are, to certain degrees, of course, presently immersed in unspeakable sufferings. To liberate them from this, to bring about the awakening of Buddhahood for the sake of these beings, should be our motivation while listening to further teachings. From among the teachings of Karma Chagmas, from his texts, the essential union of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, we continue now in the song that we have started yesterday, and he continues to say, birth ends in death. What is built ends by falling down. So of course it goes without saying that everything that has been born into this world, everything that has come into this world by way of such circumstances is invariably going to die. There's absolutely no way around this. Everything, every being, no matter of what sort it might be, will eventually die, period. The same holds true for everything that has in any which way been constructed, that has been built, that has been accumulated. The end of such construction, of such building or accumulation, will invariably be in disintegration. There's no way that anything of this could possibly have any lasting endurance. So this is the basic fact of life. We better have get used to it. Not enough with this, Karma Chagma continues to explain that which flourishes ends by declining. Accumulation ends in exhaustion. So whatever flourishes, whatever blooms, whatever grows to be beautiful, and agreeable, etc. and so forth, will eventually invariably decline. There is no way around it. All of these circumstances which bring together the blooming, the flourishing in the first place, will be exhausted at a certain time and will initiate the declining of whatever phenomena it might be for them. Similar with all sorts of accumulation. Whatever you might have accumulated, whatever you might have so painstakingly collected and brought together and hoarded, will eventually be exhausted. Things will not stay as they are, but they will change forever. So all accumulation ends in exhaustion. And our text continues to say, all meeting ends in separation, and there's no way to prevent or no way to avert this. Presently we might find ourselves in the presence of our family, of our loved ones, friends, relatives, relations of whatever sort we could possibly imagine, but it goes without saying that this coming together will only last for a short while. It will have no endurance whatsoever, and eventually when the circumstances for our coming together have been exhausted, then of course we will separate again. We will all go our own ways. Everybody, each and everything for that matter, will go its own way, will follow its own destiny. There is no eternal staying together in any which way whatsoever. And what makes things even worse is that there is not a single way to prevent or to avert this.
Padampa Sangye, 충분히 연구, 그래서 다모마지 굉장히 배는 충분히 총황심으로 나좀 기발해. 이모준 점이만에 이모를 소소시로 와 배제는 사상탐지 냠도 담바데 되는 탑재상 가서 제주로 말이에요.
Not only are all sorts of meetings or coming together doomed to end in separation, for the most part, the time of being together with whoever, be they family members, be they loved ones, be they friends or whatnot, does not last particularly long. So of course we would be well advised to use that little time that we have with these people, with these acquaintances, etc., in a useful way, in a harmonious way. No benefit will be brought about at all by fighting, by being disharmonious among each other, by slandering each other, etc. and so forth. Because there is only that little time that we have at our disposal. So why on earth not spend it in a friendly, in a harmonious way? Padampa Sangye, the famous Indian master who came to Tibet, has left some teachings which are famously known as the 100 Pieces of Advice to the people of Drime, which is an area in which he lived. And one of these verses, or one of these teachings from among these pieces of advice goes roughly, your coming together with family and loved ones is like the gathering of people on the marketplace. Do not squander that little time with fighting and the like, you people of Tenga. So he clearly advises much the same. He says, whatever short time we have at our disposal, it would be utterly hilarious to use that just for fighting among each other, just for being disharmonious in any which way. Rather, we should make good use of the time and be sensible about it, and be friendly, be harmonious, be helpful with each other, etc. and so forth. That would be the most useful way in which we could use what little time we have with such people. Suppose the situation within a family. Occasionally, by all means, it happens that there will be disagreements, and these disagreements can easily develop into fights. Now, in an ideal case scenario, there would at least be one person involved in such a fight who would train himself or herself, for that matter, in patience. And such a person who would find it within himself or herself to practice patience would indeed be in a very fortunate situation, because it is exactly such situations in the first place which provide us with the possibility to train ourselves in patience. If there were no such disagreeable situations ever, then how on earth would we practice patience? Therefore, we should consider those who cause us distress of whatever type as being sources of great kindness towards us, because they provide us with the opportunity to train ourselves accordingly. If no such fighting, if no such disagreements would ever occur, then indeed the practice of patience would be very difficult. Therefore, we should welcome these situations whenever they occur and train ourselves to the very best of our ability.
I'm not talking. Normally, people will somewhere. And normally, they got $10 to do the normally too. Yeah, my said on last of our language. Songs on us, on to send people on their language. When Cassan channels on a hearing. And I ran a shed down chamber. Now, they sent in some deal at $10 shed down yori. This shed down get over it. Maran shed on the commercial. Sending down the shed down the Jara shows that down in the people wrong with it. This one to send along the chair. But then I was in it. No, maybe he would attend our good.
Time and again, Rinpoche is being asked, how do I apply all of these teachings, all of these instructions in everyday life? As if we had anything else but everyday life. Of course, all of these teachings that we have heard so far, which for the most part we will probably hear again, they are to be applied exactly as taught. When we're being taught about how to apply bodhicitta, then this is to be done during such occurrences when we feel the influence of emotional defilements, for that matter. For instance, if we find ourselves overwhelmed, or if we find ourselves under the influence of such emotional defilements as anger or jealousy, for that matter, we could then, as we have heard so many times, practice in such a way as to think, may the anger, or may the jealousy, etc., may the sufferings, and so forth of all beings come to fruition within myself. This is the way how to bring them onto the path, to make them into a skillful means on the path as we are experiencing these emotions and the influences at any present moment anyway. So therefore we could apply them in such a way as to even make them useful, not simply to suffer through them. And in this way we ought to train ourselves by way of sending and taking the practice that is commonly known as Tongan, etc., and train ourselves continuously in giving rise to bodhicitta, giving rise to the enlightened attitude, stabilize that, make that stronger, make that more influential within ourselves. These are the situations in which the giving rise to bodhicitta are to be trained in.
That's over some the dumping in the council pepper. Children all over and was some good. Then don't want to two more some. I did Zeba. Then I am Tala, and then Don Zinkin. Those that are different from my country. Chula Coles, Sancho come to the woman and then the short temper.
Chagall continues in his next verse. The perfect Buddha, the self-realizers, or Pratyeka Buddhas as they are known, the Arhats, those who have attained common and supreme accomplishments, even they all had to leave behind their bodies in the end. This simply means to remind ourselves of the fundamental perishability of this body of ours. Even the Buddha himself, the Buddha of our time, whom we know as Buddha Shakyamuni, who after he demonstrated the achievement of awakening full Buddhahood for the sake of beings, who after that, during 3 great cycles of teachings, taught all the various ways, all the various manners on how to achieve liberation, how to achieve the awakening of Buddhahood. Even he had to leave his body behind. For those who were still clinging to the idea of permanence, he clearly demonstrated impermanence by way of leaving his body behind, which means to say, a way of dying. The same holds true also for all these other highly realized, highly attained beings, Pratyeka Buddhas, self-realizers for that matter, Arhats, or all other sorts of greatly accomplished beings, those who have achieved such miraculous miraculous abilities such as flying through the air and passing through solid matter, etc., and so forth. All of these great beings who were able to perform all sorts of miraculous deeds in the end all had to die.
조선다. 른카라 투조제 매도가 른카라 배워요. 아대에 가라. 남한이 내년 그 작정과 당시 남한이 버린 말이. 아니 그런 거야. 근데 그 세부적인 데는 남한이 버렸던 게. 그러니까 가야나 수이나 이제 그 되게 나와요. 대에 가라 되는 그런 좀 뭐 개바제 요래. 이게 다 남한이 버린 말인데 얘도 작정마다 랑제를 소탕이. 근데 템바샤자도
The story to exemplify this goes all the way back to the time of a king who was then later known as King Indrabodhi. King Indrabodhi sat in his park, sat somewhere in his gardens, enjoying himself, surrounded by his courtiers, when all of a sudden his gaze went upwards into the skies, and lo and behold, what did he see there? A group of yellow-clad, saffron-clad people were flying by. He couldn't believe his eyes, and he thought to himself, what on earth is this? Who are these people who are flying to and fro through the skies? And he asked his ministers until he finally came upon one of his particularly old ministers, an experienced old gentleman who indeed knew what the matter was. He said, these are the students of the teaching of the Buddha Shakyamuni, or Gautama Buddha for that matter. They have achieved accomplishment, and it's them who are flying through the skies in this way. King Indrabodhi, or Udayana for that matter, to the northwest of India, was greatly impressed by this display, and having heard that these people were students of the Buddha, Gautama Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni, he strongly longed to see the Buddha. So he told his ministers, he gathered his ministers together and said, and asked them, where does this Buddha person reside? And again it was the elderly minister who said, well, the Buddha resides in India. So then the king decided, well, the Buddha by all means has to be invited here to Udayana. So send parties out to India to find the Buddha and to please invite him to come here. At which the elderly minister showed himself to be even more knowledgeable, and he said to the king, if you, O king, truly wish to see the Buddha, it is not necessary at all to send people to fetch him. What we need to do is to thoroughly clean this place, and to beautify it with flowers and with incense, prepare vast offerings of the most perfect kind, and then we simply need to pray, we simply need to wish the Buddha to come here. We simply need to make heartfelt aspirations for the Buddha to appear, and the Buddha, being completely clairvoyant, being completely omniscient, will know of this, and he will come all by himself. The king indeed decided to do so, and they prepared the place thoroughly. They cleaned it, they beautified it in all imaginable ways, flowers, garlands, incense. They prepared a great offering, and then the king spoke these words of invitation, words of invocation, by way of saying, protector of all beings, not a single one excluded. Having knowing about everything fully, perfectly. You, Buddha, Bhagavan, together with your retinue, please come here to this place. While holding some incense in his hand, you prayed in this way to the Buddha for him to appear. After such wonderful prayer, indeed the Buddha and his retinue appeared in the presence of King Indrabodhi. And having been welcomed in a proper way, the kingdom addressed the Buddha, saying to him, "The other day I saw students of yours who have apparently achieved great accomplishment flying by. Oh Buddha, would you please also teach me these arts?" And it is known then that eventually the Buddha proceeded to give initiation, to give empowerment and instruction to King Indrabodhi. Particularly, he introduced him into, by way of empowerment and instruction, he introduced him into the tantras of Guya Samaja, or Sangha as they're known in Tibetan, and he taught him this tantra and the teachings, instructions which go along with them fully, and then eventually through the practice of these, King Indrabodhi himself also achieved accomplishment. The king and his retinue who had received these instructions on Guya from the Buddha trained themselves in the 5 stages of Guya practice. And they achieved accomplishment in such a way that without leaving their bodies behind, they were eventually able to travel to the realms of the darkness. So what does all of this mean to say to us? Well, we have achieved the human body. We have achieved all the we have brought together all the means which enable us to learn and practice the Dharma. On top of this, we are fortunate enough to have come into contact with the Vajrayana. So what needs to be done? Well, of course, we need to practice. What does it mean to practice or to train oneself in this regard? It of course means to train oneself in one's individual yidam meditation, whatever meditational or yidam deity one might have chosen for oneself, to train yourself in the various visualizations which are part and parcel of that practice, and to train yourself in the mantra repetition of that deity. It also means to train yourself occasionally in the various meditation techniques such as shamatha or vipassana, or shine and laptong as they're called in Tibet. When it comes to shamatha meditation, we have trained ourselves already several times in this. By all means, there are some who are already rather well versed in this practice. So when it comes to shamatha meditation, you're all very ferocious shamatha meditators, sitting all there with your straight backs and your expressions of equanimity. So indeed, there must be lots of experts already involved. That being the case, hopefully, we might now proceed to train ourselves a little bit in vipassana or in laptong meditation, which is designed to actually see or recognize the nature of the appearance of phenomena as it truly is. Now, when training ourselves in Vipassana meditation, Laptong as it is called in Tibetan, this particular meditation is designed to make us truly see how the nature of phenomena and appearances, how the nature of our own minds, for that matter, truly is. In order to truly recognize this, it is necessary, however, that we first receive the blessing and inspiration of our teachers. And to that end, of course, we would be well advised to train ourselves before we proceed with Vipassana meditation in a practice that is commonly known as Guruyoga. To that end, one would imagine how one's own guru teacher is truly present above oneself in space, and one would pray one-pointedly to him. We will do so in the following by way of reciting the words Lama Teno, Chinchin Tsawa Lama Teno 3 times. After having one-pointedly from the very bottom of our hearts prayed to the Lama in this way, we will then proceed to imagine how we received before empowerments, the blessing and inspiration of the teacher. You would imagine how from his forehead white light radiates, dissolving into your own forehead. Through this, all the shortcomings and defilements of your own bodies are being purified and receive the blessing and inspiration of the Lama's body. Then you would imagine how red light radiates from his throat into your own throat, and this serves to purify all the defilements and shortcomings of your own speech, and you receive the blessing and inspiration of the Master's enlightened speech. Then from his heart center, blue light radiates into your own heart, and you imagine, you consider how this purifies all the shortcomings and deteriorations of your own mind, of your own mind stream or consciousness for that matter, and at the same time you receive the blessing and inspiration of the Lama's enlightened awareness. Finally, you would imagine how these 3 lights simultaneously radiate from the Lama's forehead, throat, and heart into your own forehead, throat, and heart, white, red, and blue light at the same time, and this purifies the combined defilements of your body, speech, and mind, and you receive the Lama's blessing and inspiration to eventually realize the state of Mahamudra. Finally, you would imagine then how the Lama, your kind root Lama above yourself, then dissolves into light and melts into yourself. How the Lama's enlightened awareness becomes one and the same and inseparably one with your own mind stream. And then you simply rest in this state. You rest in this state in a completely natural and completely uncontrived way, without any further ado whatsoever. You simply leave it at that. Then, of course, invariably, after a couple of moments, thoughts will begin to stir again. Whenever a thought arises, of whatever nature it might be, you simply leave it at that. You simply remain freshly awake and aware, take note of the thought, and simply leave it to itself. There's nothing to be done about this thought whatsoever. There's no reason to suppress it in any way, and you certainly also should not follow after this thought, allowing it to become a whole train of thoughts. Simply take note of the thought, and leave it at that. Nothing else is to be done.
좋아요, 좋아하지.